I started school there was no sewage system in Newton Hague.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, it was the bucket system and night carts, generally known as the barley lorries. It was a pretty crude toilet block where it was just a concrete channel. It started as a urinal at one end, and then all the cubicles were sort of over this channel. Some of these guys got hold of some methylated spirits, and they poured a jug of methylated spirits into the thing while somebody was in a cubicle and lit it. Then there was apparently a horrendous scream as this guy got singed.
good evening and welcome to it. Well, it's not evening for me, but for the gentleman we are about to interview, it is evening for him. He's all the way in New Zealand. But guys, before we jump into the interview, please don't forget to link up with us on our social media pages. That is on LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as on Instagram. You can also like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, and you can please click the bell notification button so that you can be notified every time we have a new podcast up. So today we are traveling all the way across the Tasmanian Sea to chat to a gentleman who's in New Zealand. Today we've got a veteran of Muir College, an old Muir boy, and he goes by the name of Mr. Kevin Clark. Sir, how are you today?
Pretty good. It's a lovely day here in New Zealand.
Yes.
Been a lovely summer so far. Fantastic.
Cool. All right. So this is going to be an interesting conversation because you from the old guard, the older guys that know all the history of the old school. So I want to start from how was your experience, or how did you get into Muir College?
Well, I was born in Newton Hague. I grew up there, and I was in walking distance of the school.
Okay.
The family home was in Church Street, just on the other side of McGuinness Park. So I was just to walk through the park to the school, and that was it. My parents are both involved with the war. I was born in 1940.
Sure.
So my maternal grandmother kind of brought me up, and when my parents came back from the war, they sort of found work in Port Elizabeth and lived with us for a while, and then moved to Port Elizabeth and just thought it was better seeing that I'd started at Muir College to see it through there. So that's Muir College was the only school I've ever been to.
Okay. So going from school, I know life has happened and a lot has happened. I want to know from you, after finishing school, what sort of path and careers did you follow?
Well, I matriculated in 1956.
Sure.
I was the baby of the class. I was 15 in matric and turned 16 in matric. My parents thought I was far too young to go to university, so I spent a year working in Port Elizabeth. And then went to University of Cape Town, qualified as an architect, and did some music studies as well. And after graduation in 1963, left for England. We were encouraged to go over to Europe and do study tours to have a look at the architecture, all the cathedrals and the architectural monuments of Europe and masterpieces. And that's what kind of most of us did. Some went back to South Africa and others scattered around the world. And I ended up in New Zealand.
Very, 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 very far.
So one of those things. But yeah, great memories of Muir.
Yeah.
Going right back to the beginning. Different story in 1945. I had a look on Google Maps the other day just to sort of see if I could remember things. And yes, the first classroom I went to where we had, I don't know if they still call it Sub A,
Yeah,
Was in
survey, grade one.
the room, a little room attached to the west side of the gymnasium.
Yeah.
Uh, the woodwork block was still there, but I see the toilet block doesn't exist anymore. I don't know what happened to that. And there's a funny story too, because when I started school there was no sewage system in Newton Hague.
Oh.
Uh, yeah, it was the bucket system and night carts, generally known as the barley lorries. It was a pretty crude toilet block where it was just a concrete channel that started as a urinal at one end, and then all the cubicles were sort of over this channel, seats with a hole in it. And when you were finished, there was a bucket and a tap at the end, and you chuck the bucket of water in, and that sluiced everything down.
Oh.
And one of the events that happened was this, some of these guys got hold of some methylated spirits, and they poured a jug of methylated spirits into the thing while somebody was in a cubicle and lit it. There was apparently a horrendous scream as this guy got singed.
I can imagine. Now, I can't imagine that. So, you've just shared a memorable moment with us from school. So, reunions are sort of a big thing when it comes to the OMU. We hold it very dear to our hearts. So, have you attended any reunions?
No. I've only come across one or two old Millwrights since I left. One was a classmate of mine who studied architecture, and saw him occasionally in England. And in we had a 50-year reunion of our class of 63 at University in Cape Town, and guys came from all over the world for this reunion.
Oh.
And he was there. And on one of the visits to South Africa, I bumped into a Billy Calder, who was one of my classmates. But having been in England and New Zealand, I've just lost contact with the old school, and I'm not quite sure how I got onto the mailing list years ago, but it's been fun reading all the newsletters and catching up on stuff. Quite different now from the old days. I was talking about it with my wife the other day. I said, when I saw this room of our sub A, where in the mornings we had to put a handkerchief on the desk and spread our fingers on, we had our fingernails inspected.
Oh.
Wow. Oh, that was heavy stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, that also coincides with sort of the traditions that the school has, because that went throughout, even during my time at Muir. We used to have an inspection, but we stayed at the hostel. So every morning you had to wake up, make sure your bed is done military style, make sure that the room is clean, your lockers, your clothes are folded, and your nails and your shoes and everything. So I guess the traditions of the school have still are still alive even today. So, which leads me to my next question now about reunions that you just spoke about. How important do you think reunions are in sort of keeping these legacies and these sort of small things that we've seen throughout the years at Muir College? How do you think how important do you think they are?
Well, I think that'd be great fun. As I haven't come across another old Millwright in New Zealand at all. They tried to have a little meeting here some while ago, but it never eventuated.
Okay.
And yeah, it'd be great fun to swap stories and reminisce. Some terrible things used to happen here and again, now and again, but yeah, we miss things. I know that I think in some of the other countries they have quite active old Millwright
Yes.
reunion in the Gulf states and places where there are lots of old Millwrights, but don't think there are too many here. I don't know.
We have actually, it's quite interesting that you mentioned that. We have a gentleman by the name of Dr. Miller, who is also in New Zealand, actually. So maybe you guys can link up, Dr. Miller. I can't remember which year he was in, but I think we should ask Wendy to maybe organize a connect with you guys over there in New Zealand. So my next question. Now, you've just told me a story about the old bucket system, but I'm sure you've got more funny stories to tell about the old school. So, what's the funniest story that you have that you can remember from back in the days when you were in your college?
Well, I wrote about it actually for one of the newsletters a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have a shooting range, which was called the Butts, where people learned to shoot 303 rifles. There's a target thing and all that. And whenever a fight broke out, the yell would go around the playground, fireball. Is it still called a fireball? Do you still have fights at school? And everyone would rush to the Butts and stand around the fence and watch the fight. And anyway, our PT teacher, nickname was Donkey Dupree. He came up and broke up a fight and frog marched these guys off. And we thought he was going to take him to the headmaster's office for a caning, but he took them into the gym, put them boxing gloves on, and let them sort it out. But there was a stray dog that used to hang around the playground all the time.
Yeah.
Made a living from eating the scraps of guys' lunches and stuff, And he jumped over this fence and he caught and ripped his scrotum on a barbed wire. I didn't see it happen, but I heard it from miles around the house.
Mm.
And, a few guys got this dog and held him down, and he was howling and shivering. And one of the guys, obviously a farmer's son, who'd done this sort of castration operation before, with a pocket knife, completed the procedure and turned the dog into a eunuch. The guys looked after the dog, put him in a shed, and he recovered actually and carried on making a living from scraps of lunch. But he was always known, his nickname, or his name was Minus. And I often wondered what happened to Minus.
So, having walked through the gates of Muir College is an honor and a privilege to be called an Old Muirite. But there are certain things that we learn from your college, or we've learned from your college, that we have sort of the ethoses that we've lived with through our lives. It's very important. I think this question is one of the important questions in this podcast, is wanting to know from our Old Muirites, how has Muir College sort of shaped you into the man that you've become after leaving the school?
Well, I think it certainly taught me discipline and respect. Mm-hmm. We were all pretty well behaved. Hard work. I mean, I arrived in New Zealand in Christmas 1966. Mm-hmm. Started work in 1967, absolutely penniless. We arrived in Sydney and my wife and I had to sleep on a bench because we couldn't even afford a hotel for the night. I started work at the beginning of 1967 and I had to get an advance on my first paycheck so I could put a deposit on a flat.
Mm.
I worked my butt off doing extra work after hours, also doing music gigs and things. And it only took me 2 years. My wife and I were talking about it 2 years before we bought our first house, starting from. And again, music was got me into. I started off on my own as an architect. Within a few years, I had no contacts here whatsoever, no old school tie, no contacts, whatever. But a couple of guys in a band I was playing with, one was a very astute businessman and the other guy was a builder, and they decided they would start a building company to build spec houses, and would I do the drawings? And I hummed and hard because I'd been offered a partnership with a firm of architects I was working with, but I decided I'd rather do it on my own.
Yeah.
So I started out on my own, thanks to these guys. And things blossomed from there, and I joined up with some other guys, and the firm just grew and grew. And I live on the seafront, on the sea, and just through sheer hard work and behaving myself. Because some of the stories I hear of what goes on in the schools here, uh, pretty ragged sort of. I've been teaching at the schools, but I just teach in the music department, which is a bit more civilized than some of the other places.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
And there's a fair bit of bad behavior that goes on, but I don't remember much bad behavior at Mill in the classrooms anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, a few roughies. It reminded me of the story just because of somebody the other day with a hearing aid. We had a teacher in one of our classes. Now, this is going back a long time. Hearing aids weren't like they are now. And he had a thing in his ear and a piece of wire.
Yeah.
Amplifier was stuck on his lapel with a volume control on it. And then one of the more obstreperous kids would sort of start an argument with him and would speak and just mouth the words without making a noise. And he would dive for the volume control, turn the volume control up, and this guy would bellow into
Oh, that's funny. Wow. Boys will always be boys. And I always say this, we always get up, we always find a way to become mischievous, even if it's the most simplest things, like a hearing aid, for instance. Now,
I kept my head down because I said I was the youngest in the class, and
yeah.
And the other thing was I don't know how it works now, but in those days you had three streams. I don't know, I can't remember when you changed. You could either do what they called commercial, which was commercial arithmetic and bookkeeping or whatever,
yeah,
or you did academic, which was Latin and constitutional history and all sorts of stuff, and technical and building construction. And that's what I did because I wanted to become an architect. And the tech drawing and everything I learned from there, from Jara Alberts, absolutely stood me in good stead because I've done a lot of building work on my own house. I started a building company with another guy here. And I'm quite at home on the tools as well as the drawing board. And Jara Alberts was one of the teachers that I really had an amazing amount of respect and admiration for, because we had a few roughies in the tech department who saw that as a soft option as opposed to Latin and whatever. And he never had to send them to the principal's office for caning or anything. If they played up, he would just pull them aside, have a little chat in the office, and all would be sweet. He never sent anyone for caning ever that I can remember, which was great. Because some of the others did, they got marched off to, do you still call it getting cuts, or is that all gone now?
We called it getting jacks.
Do they still use the cane?
Well, I'm not allowed to say now. I don't know. Maybe.
Because that's all long gone in New Zealand. No corporal punishment at all.
Oh, man. So we are reaching the end of our podcast interview. But before we go, I'd like to know, what is your greatest achievement? I mean, you've just told me that you started from nothing in a foreign country and you built yourself up to where you are right now. What is your greatest achievement thus far?
Well, I think all of that plus my musical career, that was in parallel, doing lots of radio and TV work, winning national awards, and I wasn't even a full-time musician. Well, I have been since I quit architecture when I was 57, quite early, because I had other business interests, and I wanted to carry on with music. So I went and did postgraduate studies and ended up tutoring at the Conservatorium of Music and recording albums and writing music and all sorts of things. I even wrote the music, would you believe, for a rugby film.
Which one?
We had to do wing running down the line music and scrummaging music and good rucking music. Actually, it was quite funny when I arrived in New Zealand. My father-in-law seemed quite chuffed to have a South African son-in-law. And I was absolutely shattered from the trip over. But oh no, he woke me up and he carted me off to the rugby club in Wanganui where we were, because he was the president of the rugby club, and he touted me all around the rugby club, introducing me to these guys as a South African and whatever. And they were all asking me about rugby and Springboks, and I didn't have a clue because I'd been I've been away from South Africa for 3.5 years.
Yeah. All
But here
right.
we are.
Yeah. So, as a closing gesture, we always afford our guest the opportunity to send a message of encouragement and to share some wisdom with us. What are your words of encouragement to old Murites and maybe the current Murites?
Well, just hard work and application and behave yourself, I guess. You know, to just share hard work that got me to the point where I could retire, if you like, at 57. And just applying it and the ethos of, well, at school was work and applying yourself. I don't know. I hope it's still like that at Mule, is it?
It is definitely like that.
That it's you got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit like that with the kids that I teach too, that and push them so far. I can't spoon feed you. There has to be a bit of give and take both ways. You've got to put in a fair bit of effort yourself. I can't spoon feed you. You're going to have to take something and run with it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much for this interview. Lovely stories, and I hope you have a good evening.
It's a few clouds coming over now, but we'll go and sit in our conservatory and look at the sea. We're right on the seafront, and just absolute paradise.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
That was the nice one there from Mr. Kevin Clark, all the way up in New Zealand, class of 1956. Such a long time ago, but very relevant interview, very nice stories that he told us. And if you want to catch up with some of our episodes, you can go onto our YouTube channel and you can like and subscribe, and also please click the bell notification button so that you can be notified every time we post a new episode. You can also keep in touch with us on our social media pages, that is on Facebook, that is on LinkedIn, as well as on Instagram. So for today's episode, that is it from me, your host Ngeto Machele, and I'll see you guys next time. Nek Pluribus Impar. Cheers.